It is day 22 of Shelter in Place. I hope everyone out there is staying safe. It is getting crazy out there. You guys better be in shelter in place. And if you're not and you go outside, make sure you have your mask on, you put on some gloves, and you dispose of them correctly. But you guys might be wondering why I have my sunglasses on, my little burr scarf on, right? The thing is, it is Saturday, and I haven't been out for 3 weeks, really. Not hanging out, not going to the restaurants. So I wanted to feel good, you know? Wanted to put on some nice threads, some nice clothing so I could feel better. I've just been in sweats and a t shirt and hanging out in my garage and hacking it up. But today, we have one of my best friends on the planet, my brother from another mother. I love this dude. The conversations we have are epic daily. My man, Ronald Edding, sir.
Yes, thank
How
you for having me.
how are you? Thank you for coming back. I know we had some technical difficulties last time you were here. We kind of corrected those, and we wanted to come back so you could present on your serverless. And yes, yes, this is Burberry. King David. David, yes. I want to feel good, King David. It is Burberry. I wanted to put some threads on. I wanted to feel good. It is Saturday. You know how it is, Ronald. We were talking about this in the garage today. You know, we want to bowl out, we want to stunt, but we have no place to go.
That's so true though.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough, but you got to make it work.
Yeah. So I decided to make it work and put on some nice threads, some fresh clothing. How are you doing, sir, on this craziness of shelter in place and staying motivated, sir?
You know what? It's very unfortunate that we're going through this time, and hearts out to anyone that's affected. But if you're not affected, I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. I don't feel as though I'm affected at this moment, and none of my loved ones are. Everyone's safe at this point. So I'm using every moment to better myself.
Yeah.
What can I do in this time to make myself better? How can I grow? How can I
Oof.
become better than I am today? Despite all that's going on, because that's
Ooh.
what has to happen at the end of
Yes.
each day.
Yes, I completely agree. And on top of that, make yourself feel good. Like right now, I feel
Yes.
good. I'm doing it live. I have my threads on, my usually Saturday night live outfit on. I usually go out, and today and for the next month we're going to be here, right? But one of the cool things that we have, those conversations that we have together when we're downstairs chatting in the kitchen or in the garage, we're discussing on how are we going to grow the next 30, 40 days when we're in shelter in place. And those conversations, we go really deep on it. We look at that end goal and reverse engineer to the present day, and I love that. And you throw out those questions, and vice versa. I throw them out to you. What would you recommend to people that aren't focused, or that don't have the motivation because all of the craziness of on the news and information overload? What would you recommend for those people, Ron?
For anyone that's going through like a tough time, information overload, or just being distracted, lack of motivation, I would say create a structure for yourself. Create a plan. Number one, have a goal. Well, you should probably have a goal first, then create a plan for
Mm-hmm.
it, and then try your best to stick to the plan. So for me, the working from home this much, I want to sleep in later. So instead of trying to wake up as early as I do when I go into the office, what can I do to kind of meet myself in the middle? How can I still get the amount of rest that my body is truly wanting
Mm-hmm.
while still waking up early? So my thing, and what I would recommend for anyone is start clean, start fresh, try to wake up early, get some extra cycles in before anyone has an opportunity to bother you, and see what you can do with it. Even if it's 15 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, everything counts. Everything can go a long way as long as you put the work in constantly and consistently.
Oof, that's powerful. I've been doing the opposite. I've been for the last, let's say, 3 weeks going to sleep around the hacker hours, as I call it, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and I'm switching that up now. Now I'm switching it up. I'm going to sleep at a reasonable time and waking up at 5 a.m. ish. I'm trying to be consistent on that. But what have you been doing lately? Not only working from home, but day to day DevOps and stuff like that.
Yes, yes. So late day to day, I gotta represent Hacker Valley
Oh, we're
Studio.
going
Have
into that. We're
Yes,
going into
yes.
that heavy right after this.
So that's really what I spend a lot of my free time doing. But looking at the day to day, looking at Palo Alto Networks, a lot of time spent doing security architecture, assisting DevOps teams,
Hmm.
assisting SecOps, assisting IT ops, all cloud, all on-prem, whatever the infrastructure is and the architecture, however it's set up. Our team, day in and day out, we assist organizations build better security workflows and provide better protection and policies around it.
Awesome. You have a very unique insight. I think you're the only one that I've ever spoken to in the industry that has the insight of how different companies structure their environment, secure their IP and their infrastructure. Where do you see trends right now going? Where is it going right now? You have that insight.
Yeah, if you look at the trends, I think the data proves itself, and also the hype proves itself.
Mm.
We're kind of going further and further towards a service model, further and further towards cloud models,
Oh yeah.
SaaS models. So really taking the ownership off of an organization or an individual, security, taking that responsibility off of them, taking the responsibility of infrastructure away. And also sometimes if you're using an application like WordPress, you can use a SaaS and take the responsibility of even managing the application away from you. So I think looking at the shift in security specifically, I see everything sprinting to the cloud.
Nice. Any new technologies that are on your radar that you're like, man, this is the next thing I have to learn. This is the future. I'm betting on it.
When I'm looking at it, you know what I love, and I would say definitely check it out for whoever's listening. It's called Kraken.ai.
Ooh.
And Kraken is a hypergraph technology. So it's a graph database, but what's hot and interesting about Kraken is it allows you to connect graphs to other graphs. So if you have a graph model outlining maybe your security events, you're able to search based off of cases or endpoints and pivot. Well, imagining being able to ask a question and say, I want to know how these two endpoints are related, and I don't want to have to do all these joins and adding queries together and distilling data. Using hypergraphs allows you to ask complex questions and get back simple data.
Nice. And I know right now I want to switch gears to the podcast. Chris is on.
Yes.
I've seen you post up some comments. Much respect. I had him on the live stream on Wednesday. Both of you guys are doing an amazing job on the Hacker Valley Studio podcast on all platforms. Go right now and subscribe right this second. I'm telling you, it's amazing. Tell me what's going on with that. Not only give me a summary on the podcast, but what's coming up in the future as well.
So for anyone that hasn't checked out Hacker Valley Studio, definitely check it out. It's a labor of love, powered by Chris Cochran and myself, and we try to do our best of exploring the human element of cybersecurity. So there's many podcasts that will give you your flash briefings, but ours goes beyond the briefings and looks at the human element. What inspires and encourages these amazing individuals to
Mm-hmm.
do better, to create better content and also build their community. So, what's coming up with Hacker Valley Studio is a lot. So, we just launched a few different types of platforms. So, we launched our Patreon page. We just launched our new website, and also we have some bonus content and monthly mastermind meetings that we're doing. So that's also that should be on your radar too.
Nice, nice. One thing I love, you know, about your podcast is if you guys were in the WWE, you guys will be the world like tag team champions. Because when you guys have someone on there, the questions that they get are well thought out, and then you bring that essential content out from them. It's amazing. It's entertaining, and you get golden nuggets every single time. I highly recommend it. You guys, I'm right now posting it up in the chat. Go to their site right now, subscribe. I'm a subscriber, and I listen to it every time it comes out. Guys, definitely do that. Where what future guests you guys are gonna have on? Can you reveal that? There's so many in the chamber, right?
We have a lot of guests coming up. We actually just recorded a few episodes last week.
Awesome.
So we just had Kathleen Smith on.
Oof.
Definitely check her out. Cybersecjobs.com, and I think she also has another platform that she founded. I believe it's called clearjobs.net.
Oh,
So she's a great resource. Even if you don't go to her platforms, check out her Twitter, her LinkedIn, and she's an amazing recruiting resource that can help you look at money, that can help you look at opportunity, that can help you look at thriving while we're going through COVID-19.
yeah. Good segue into what are you seeing right now in the industry going through this COVID-19? Everyone is in a recession. Some companies are in depressions, restaurants and everything. There's going to be a lot of companies that will no longer exist. My experience in a conversation we had earlier this week is not only is cybersecurity not even affected, but I'm seeing jobs and people are reaching out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm not even looking. They're looking for people to get people on ASAP, and I'm like, nope, I'm not looking. It's all right. But I'm seeing amazing opportunities during this crisis. What do you have you seen? What is the market telling you?
For cybersecurity, I think there's a lot of room for growth. We're going to see a shift in remote opportunities, remote work opportunities. So, looking at the future, it's going to be golden for anyone that's looking for an opportunity, especially if you already have a solid skill set. If you're an expert in your domain in cybersecurity, then you're definitely going to thrive and probably get hit up on LinkedIn, Twitter for tons of opportunities. Mine has definitely been flooded, but it's been flooded even before COVID. There was already, a knowledge gap and also people shortage on cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's always been like that. But let's go into share out. I want you to go into this serverless presentation that you have. Right, we went into a few things, and for me, I'm looking forward to this. I was looking forward to this the first time you presented, but you know what? I just had an idea. Maybe you guys, since you're presenting right there, Hacker Valley Studio guys, maybe we should have a collab on this live stream. Both of you guys on here. That would be cool.
We gotta do that.
Yeah,
We gotta do
that's
that.
that would be really cool. Both of you guys on here.
Let's set up a date then.
Yeah,
Let's set
yeah.
up a date. A week from today.
Ooh, yeah,
Maybe we have to look at schedules,
yeah. Of
but I
course.
know I know Chris is out there. He's already been on.
Listen, I'm open. I'm open. I'm here every single day at 6, and it is what it is. I'll let you guys figure it out. I'm here until shelter's out of place. Yes, indeed, Chris. We definitely, I would love to go back and forth and just have like a triangle offense on some Chicago Bulls 96 style.
I would flip the script back on you and say you got to come on the podcast.
Absolutely. I'm there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I think one of the motivations behind doing this was you guys, right? Seeing all the cool stuff you're doing. It's motivating. It's motivating. It pushes the envelope, you guys. So you guys are leading the way when it comes to podcasts, and it is amazing. Everyone on the live stream, I'm telling you, you gotta subscribe. It's on you, brother.
Yes, sir. Let's jump right into it. So, as you can already see, this is definitely a great resource. Check it out. This is our podcast page. But without further ado, let's go ahead and look at some of these slides, talk about some tech, and see what we can all learn together. So, if anyone's tuning in and you have a question, let me know. Marco will speak it back. But this is going to be pretty short, brief, and straight to the point. I want to also jump into somewhat of a demo, some of these slides, talk about some tech,
My
and
apologies.
see what we can all.
Go for it.
All right. Yes, sir. So this kind of talk and presentation I'm going to provide right now is called The Art of Automation, Creating Security Automation in the Cloud. And this was inspired because in 2017, I began working with a financial institution and they had most of their technology on-prem. And this organization, they were beginning to migrate some of their assets, devices, and users to the cloud. And when they were migrating, it came with a huge complexity. It created a degree of challenges for their teams. But out of it all, one of the things that I observed wasn't the difficulty in using the technology. It was the difficulty in sharing information and lesson learned amongst teams. So I thought it would be really interesting to take some of the things that I learned and put it into a slide, some GitHub repos, and share that information back out. So these slides were originally developed for a threat intel bot talk that I gave back in November and also in March. I'll have some resources for that at the end. But the what we're gonna look at by the end of this presentation is what is serverless, uh, what is the evolution of security architecture look like, and what could we do with cloud technology, the serverless framework, which we'll jump into, and how can we use these technologies to benefit our organization. So when we look at security architecture, or just when we say infrastructure, traditionally we had most of our technology on-prem. So our firewalls were on-prem, we had Active Directory on-prem, and also email was on-prem. But as time is going on, we're starting to see applications and services uh, get migrated over to the cloud. And this is awesome because we're taking some of the responsibilities off of an organization and putting that on to the cloud provider. But we also get to benefit by reducing costs, reducing complexity, and allowing someone else to manage these services and applications for us. But don't get it twisted ever, because the responsibility of the data is always on the customer. So if you are storing information in the cloud, whether you're a big fortune company or a startup, the data that you store in there is your responsibility. If the cloud provider gets hacked, the data is still your responsibility. So that's just something to always keep in mind.
Hmm.
If the data is too sensitive, don't store it in the cloud because it's always going to be back on you. But looking at the future, this is what cloud environments this is what security infrastructure is beginning to look more and more like. And we also see that Active Directory is no longer in this bubble. It's now IAM. We're seeing a huge influx of single sign-on applications that are leveraging technologies and protocols like SAML.
This is cutting edge, folks.
Yes.
Bleeding.
And and where does that leave us, right? When we're hosting our applications in the cloud, how do we get them there in the first place? Is it by manually logging into AWS or GCP and pushing our applications there? Or is there a more seamless way to where we can build a process, some type of workflow to constantly update and push our latest and greatest code to dev or prod? And this is really important because as we receive events and alerts from our cloud providers, we can use serverless technology, Lambda functions, Google Cloud functions to rapidly respond, triage, and remediate security events and alerts. Um, and a little background about serverless framework is it's all powered, in our case, by Python. This framework was originally written in Node. Node so the framework packages up all of your Python files, your serverless files into a CloudFormation template. And if you don't know what a CloudFormation template is, that's okay. You'll get some insight as to what a CloudFormation template looks like. And the real important piece to note is a CloudFormation template will set up our infrastructure. So the main operations when we're using serverless framework is running these three commands. Serverless deploy, which pushes out all of our infrastructure. It looks at a serverless.yaml file. A serverless invoke allows us to run each function in our serverless.yaml file one by one. And don't worry, we'll look at that in a second. And serverless remove. This is also a great function and great operation to use in serverless framework because this will tear down our entire infrastructure if we need to redeploy or just trying to avoid costs while deving going forward. But let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide, which outlines how to get started. So a few months ago, I worked on a GitHub project called URL to image. And let's go ahead and click that, and we can look at the instructions on how to get started in the page. So this GitHub project is a great security application because it does something extremely simple and, in my opinion, highly valuable. So this project will allow you to deploy an application in AWS, and you can reach it through an HTTP call, and it will allow you to go out and browse to a website without actually browsing to it. Your Cloud Function browses to the website for you. So this can work great for web crawling, investigating malicious or suspicious URLs, and it serves as a great example to get started with serverless. It's pretty straightforward to start with this project and build off of it. There's only a few things required. Of course, if you're using cloud environments or deploying to the cloud, you're going to need an AWS or GCP account. And there's instructions here in this repo for how to create an account in AWS, how to create your security credentials. And after you get done with that, you have to install Node.js. Node.js is, I'm not going to jump into what Node.js is. If you don't know what that is, you can check it out here in this link or read more about it on their documentation page. But serverless framework was built in Node, so Node powers serverless, and that's one of the dependencies. After you get Node and serverless installed, the next thing that we need to do is configure our security credentials in AWS. And last but not least, we get to clone this repository. I went ahead and deleted it. We're not going to run this exact project, but we're gonna try to build something together. Me and you, Marco.
Yes, sir.
I didn't tell you this, but we're gonna pray to the demo gods together.
Okay.
Yes. So
Hallelujah.
Let's go ahead and clone this repository. We're going to install our requirements. And instead of reaching out to a website using Chrome driver and Selenium, we're going to do something a little more simple. We're just going to reach out using request in Python.
Mm.
So let's go to our terminal. Actually, yep. So I'm in my GitHub directory.
Can you yeah, expand that? So yep. Awesome.
All right, so let's clone it. For me personally, I do love coding in the CLI, but I'm a huge VS Code guy, so I'm gonna jump straight into that. All right, can you see that all right?
Yep.
Cool. So as I was mentioning, this project really reaches out to a website and renders it on your behalf. But we're gonna make it a little simple, but we're also gonna explore each of these files in this directory.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was mentioning, serverless framework, it's powered by a serverless YAML file. And this file describes our infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So when we deploy to AWS or whatever provider we're using, we're going to define what is the name of our project. This project was originally called URL to image, but I'm going to change it and I'm going to call it URL to requests.
Gotcha.
And we're also going to change this piece too and continue on. So when we're looking at line number one is defining our project name in our serverless.yaml file. Lines 3 through 7 are looking at the provider information. Where are we deploying this and how are we deploying it? So we're deploying this project to AWS and we're going to be using Python 3.8.
Not
You can
2.7, right?
Rest in peace. Python 2.7 did me well.
Yeah.
But we're going to use 3.8. You can use 3.7 or
Mhm.
any other version that you like. Does not matter as long as AWS provides running containers in that version of Python. So we're going to be deploying in US East 1, but just to kind of show that we're doing this live, and we're going to change the region to be US West 2. The great thing about serverless is while we're developing, while we're making changes to our project, we'll probably have a dev branch in GitHub. Well, we can also have a dev project in serverless slash AWS. So instead of rewriting prod and redeploying to prod before we're ready, we can change the staging environment and say, let's deploy to dev. So whatever work we've already committed and is working fine, we're not overwriting it. And each serverless project could have multiple functions. In our case, we only have one function, and our function is it was to render a page. That's what our function name is. We're gonna leave that as is, or we can change it, but ultimately we're gonna be launching a function called render, and this function named render is going to be launching a Python script. It's gonna be looking in this URL request, which we're gonna rename this folder, and running this Python script and calling this Python function. So let's go ahead and rename this folder here, and we will call this URL to requests. And instead of calling this function render, I'm going to change it to requests, and I'm also going to rename the method that we're going to be calling in Python to requests. So let's go ahead and jump in. Actually, we should probably look at the rest of this serverless.yaml file. So when we're looking at the Python script that we're going to be executing, that makes sense here. We're also going to be setting a timeout in our serverless.yaml file. And this is important because we don't want our requests running for too long. When we're using Lambda, we get so many free requests per month. But these requests still use CPU, they still use memory. So if you don't want to rack up big bills, it's really smart to provide limitations around how your functions are going to run and how long they're going to run for.
Nice.
This function is also going to be powered by events. So we can perform an event to launch this function. And the event that we're going to perform is a HTTP call.
Mm-hmm.
So we can tell our serverless.yaml file to accept get methods, and this is going to be our HTTP path. So once we launch this, serverless is going to give us a URL we can reach, and this will be the path for performing our HTTP call. This piece isn't really that important. It could stay, it could go, but this
Mm-hmm.
is really nice for if you're not too sure, if you're still testing, for just allowing all URI parameters, all post bodies to go through to your Lambda in the form of the HTTP requests.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, there's a few more lines here before we jump into the code. Lines 20 through 25 describe the plugins and how the plugins are going to help us also. So we're going to be leveraging a requirements.txt file. And our serverless project is going to load that up and install the requirements.txt file inside of a Docker. So we don't need a virtual environment per se, because that our virtual environment is going to be constructed by serverless framework, and it's going to install our requirements in a Docker container.
Nice.
If you wanted to put it in a full CI/CD pipeline and push this to GitHub and have it automatically deployed to AWS, you could use a build spec file. I'm not going to jump into that, but for anyone that's interested, just Google build spec, AWS, serverless, and you'll get to the resources that you need to use a service like code build or any other thing that's going to be required to automatically build from your GitHub repo. But I think really all of this is interesting because of the Python code that powers it. I'm going to jump into the index.py file that's going to be powering our Lambda function. So let's zoom out a bit. So as I was mentioning, this is a project that I was already working on. We know it does what we want it to do,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want to have to go through setting up the entire project. There's some manual work we have to do with Chrome driver. So instead of rendering this page that we request through our Lambda function, we're going to just print out the HTTP response and also the body that we get back from whatever site that we want to browse to without browsing to it. I'm going to remove some of this code in the between just to remove all the clutter. All right, let's go ahead and really just remove everything. So now we have just really a pretty much a small Python script. We have a function that's listed here, but it's now called request, so I have to rename it. And we have a body of code in our function. So when we launch our Lambda function, it's going to call this function within this Python script. So instead of rendering it, I said we're going to use the Python request library.
Yeah.
Yep. But I'll probably need to change this. I'll need to change this function name just so it doesn't overlap with this. I'll call it perform request. And we'll need to make sure we put that here. Okay, so what's going on with this script and why did I leave these pieces here for us? I left these pieces here because we're going to pass in some URI parameters when we perform our HTTP call.
Mm-hmm.
So when I reach out to my Lambda function, it's going to be something like this: Lambda random URL. And then we're going to do a /index, and we're going to pass in HTTP parameters. And the parameter that we're going to pass in is target. So what we're going to fill in here for our HTTP parameter is something like google.com. So what we're going to do is visit google.com, but our Lambda function is going to visit that resource for us.
Nice.
So that's why I left that here. This is going to pull out our URI parameters. It's going to pull out this piece. It's going to be in the form of a Python dictionary. And what we're going to pull out of our URI parameter is the target parameter. So that's why I left that here.
Ooh, I
So
have a
let's.
nice use case after this.
Oh,
A nice
yes.
bug bounty use case. Go for it.
All right. So one of the great things that I love about this project and serverless framework in general is there's not really much to it after this. Like after we grab our URI parameter, the last thing that we need to do is really just browse to that resource. So for anyone that hasn't used request before, this will serve as a nice little refresher or introduction because it's very straightforward what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a get request, and all we're going to do is browse to that target resource.
Nice.
And we're going to call our variable that we're going to store the body in, we're going to call it response. And we're going to just grab the entire content from when we browse to this website. Okay? So what happens if someone browses to our Lambda function without passing in URI parameters? It will return an error for them. It will say, hey, you need to pass in your URI parameters before this Lambda function is going to work. So assuming that they pass in their URI parameters, it's going to reach this part of the code, and we're going to ultimately need to return this variable. So instead of returning this other body saying missing, we're just going to return response. And it's going to be that simple. So this Lambda function now at this point should just really perform an HTTP request for us and give us the results.
Nice.
So let's go ahead and make sure everything is saved, and then we'll launch it in the cloud.
Oh, nice.
All right. So really the great thing is all we have to do is serverless deploy. Let's make sure that I've done everything right. And serverless is very generous. It says, hey, before you run, you forgot to install your serverless Python requirements plugin. That is in our README. So let's go ahead and grab the syntax for that. And most of the plugins are quite nice. They can also be installed via Node, so you don't have to install them using this specific syntax. You can probably do a npm install for most of these plugins. Let's try to give it another deploy. So at this point, yeah. What were you gonna say?
No, I'm loving this. I am loving this. I have a beautiful use case for you. Why why every single person should be using this if you do bug bounties or just do web hacking or even red teaming.
Right. This could save you a lot of time if you know your process and you're using scripts over and over again.
Checklist. I while you were talking, I was setting up a manual demo on why this is crucial.
So check this out, right? Not only did the serverless framework install our requirements.txt file for us, there's really nothing in it. It was just Selenium. But it also it zips it all up for us, uploads it to an S3 bucket, and then interacts with AWS to host that S3 bucket as a website.
Ooh.
So it takes around, assuming that you have good upload speeds and your project's not too big. For me, it typically takes around 1 to 3 minutes. So here's our endpoint. we just created this endpoint. This is the function that's powering this endpoint for us. If we go to this endpoint, what will we get? Right now we're getting an error. So if we get an error, that means we probably have some syntax issue, and that's okay. Because there's always great ways to troubleshoot. And I'm glad this happened because whoever's following along will get some more intuition for not only how to use serverless, but how to quickly troubleshoot. So I believe that there's something wrong with my code here.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite sure where. So the easiest thing that I could do is just run this function. So I'm gonna put this at the bottom of my code, and I'm going to pass in these arguments manually.
Mm-hmm.
So my argument is expecting event, and it's expecting a Python dictionary. So let me go ahead and add this in. And we're going to ultimately browse to google.com. And there was a second variable argument that was also passed in, but I just passed in none. What I really need to do is ensure that this piece is parsed correctly.
Nice.
Yep. Let's see what this error is. Okay. All right, so I'm going to cd into this directory and just try to run index.py. It looks like it's working fine. Let me do a print. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe that we didn't get back what we're hoping for because this is a byte string, and that's not going to work for Lambda. So instead, what I could do is I could do .text or .json if this was a JSON response, or I can just cast this as a string. So I'm going to make my life easy for now and just cast this response as a string, and that should resolve the problem for us.
Oh, yeah.
And again, all we got to do is serverless deploy to repush it. So have you ever used serverless, Marco?
I have not, but you've convinced me right now that I must get on this ASAP. And after the demo that I'm going to give on a use case on why I need to start using this, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, this is going to make life easy for you and like no tomorrow.
Exactly. And look how fast that was.
Yeah. And I'm going to. Oh, wow.
So we're still getting some issues, but let's go ahead and just try it, right? So we need to pass in a target. Okay, so I guess there is a bit of issues. And again, I was saying that there's another way that we can invoke our function. So I just tried to troubleshoot manually. This is troubleshoot step number 2. And I'm glad we're going
Yes,
through it all.
sir.
Serverless invoke. And I was saying in the slides that this is
Yep.
how we call one of our functions.
Yep.
So we should be able to just invoke this function.
Ooh.
Oh, I need to add in a flag. Oh, I need to also just take this. Okay, so there looks like it could be my Lambda function. It's called requests.
Yeah.
All right, so here's our error. So Python told me that we don't have any
Requests.
yes.
Hmm.
So really, the first thing that I would try in this situation is I would just make sure that all of my names are spelled correctly, right? Looks
Mm-hmm.
like it is. I didn't even type it in the first place. It auto completed. But if I was having some issues, what I would do is I would make sure that's part of our
Yeah.
requirements.txt
Requirements.
file. Okay, so now we should be able to deploy again, and instead of going back and forth through the web browser, we could always just do serverless invoke and run our function.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this is the part where it's launching our Docker container for us and doing a pip install of our
Mm-hmm.
requirements.txt.
Yes, sir.
So it should be done in just a minute. And I think this will be the last piece that we're going to error on. But while we're letting that build, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the slides. There's a few things I wanted to bring up. So there is some security pieces that you'll need to look at. So when we're looking at what do we do after we get this working and it's running without issue, there's a lot that we can do from a security perspective. So Marco, I'm sure you're thinking of what we can do from a red team perspective, but uh, what can also be done is looking at how this can facilitate analyst action for security operations. So part of an analyst workflow when they're looking at malicious domains or malicious URLs is visiting that URL. They need to figure out, is this a real Microsoft login page or
Oh
a
yeah.
Google login page, or is it not? And sometimes it's just as simple as looking at it. So where
Oh
we can
yeah.
go next is adding in serverless components. They're almost like little microservices for us, and add them into our workflow.
Oh yeah. You could be
But
really creative with this.
our application has finished. So let's try to invoke it. Okay,
There it is.
so we got past our
Yes,
issues.
sir.
Now we should be able to go back to our web browser and browse to this web page without our URI parameters and get an error. Now, if we added it in,
Mm-hmm.
target equals HTTPS google.com. Now it renders it for us.
Yes, sir.
If we go to hackervalley.studio, same thing.
Mm. Nice.
So if you change out my code that we just added with the Selenium code that was already there, then this page will be rendered even better, but it will be in the form of a screenshot. This is going to render it and try to just uh, render the raw HTML right on the web page.
Nice. Dude, that is really awesome, bro. Yes,
Thank you.
sir. Yes,
Yes.
sir. So what I want to show you, I'm gonna come back to the main screen. I'm gonna show myself, go to Skype and share out my screen so I could give you a use case on why I need to like do this ASAP.
Let's see it.
All right. Can you see my screen?
I can, yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna switch over. Let me drop some of these windows, sir. Yeah, let me drop some of these windows so I could go here. So, one of the big things, especially when you're doing bug bounty stuff, and I'm gonna load this because I was taking a look at this the other day, and it might slow up. Let me know, especially the people that are live on the stream. But one of the cool things while this loads up is, you know, an easy way to look for things that on a website that shouldn't be there is an automation of like Burp Suite. So you have a file that looks for directories and tries to brute force it, right? And one of the things, so for instance, this site just came online from, they just came online last week, and they just started on Burp Suite. No, sorry, not Burp Suite, on HackerOne. It should be loading up. There we go. This is loading up. It's taking some time. It's BMW. And what I usually do, and I'll show you this, is go, and the first thing I do is IDF, right? Because I'm looking for hidden directories. Damn it. It's loading up. There we go. Should be coming in. The request is on. Yeah. All right. So what the first thing I usually do is send this over to, sorry, not repeater, but intruder, right? And then I'll just turn that off. And then when I'm under intruder, you can go to the positions of the request. You can highlight, I'm going to have to clear this, highlight this, right? And then I would add the position. Come on, sorry, clear it. There we go. And then I would add on the location where I want to attack, and then provide and load a payload. This file called dick.c, which has over, I believe, 26,000 things, requests that it basically does as a file. So it will take these specific directories and just go to bmw.de/ whatever it has here. And the cool thing is, what you would do is you would just launch the attack. You go to position, you would launch it, because I gave it the position. Go back, load. I just have so many windows, my apologies. All right, load it. There we go. And this position, and then you want to add it, and then start the attack, right? So now, once this attack is starting, it's going through the directories. Right?
Okay.
And
So
what you want to do is get a 200 request and take a look at it, because then it's successful, right? So this is where it's crucial that, like, using serverless, because this is only the first part. If you go to virustotal.com and you type in bmw.de and you want to look for subdomains they have, right? The relationships, these are all the subdomains that are related to that, right? And you want to go through all of these and do the same thing. So now you see how I would have to do this with Burp Suite manually, but with serverless, I can grab all of this, like all of these subdomains, throw it in a file, and just say, okay, I'm just gonna put a slash and then run these requests that I have in there. And I think this takes a while. This takes around 5 minutes, and it's 12,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is 12,202
For
requests.
one single domain.
Exactly. So I'm gonna just quit out on it. But that is the gist, and this is why when I was looking at what you were doing, I was like, holy shit, this is really cool. Because, let me stop sharing on your screen. And like I said, this is like really cool because I can like do this in 10 minutes rather than where are you? There you go. Sorry about that. Just bringing you back into play. There we go. Can you see me now?
Yep.
All right, cool. So yeah, I can use what you've just showed me, and you will save me, I want to say, hundreds of hours instead of doing this manually. and the resources, right? Not only potentially I could get blocked by like Cloudflare, or
Mm-hmm.
because you could get blocked real fast from like highest.com, because I think they use Fastly or Cloudflare, something like that, or they have something internally, but you could get blocked, but you could just deploy it and run that. And I just showed you at least 300 subdomain sites for bmw.de that you can easily just use what you just showed me, and it's really a click of a button once you have everything configured, and you just made life so
Right.
much easy for me.
Right. So, and one of the great things about serverless is you saw in Burp Suite, it was going through them one at a time. With serverless, you can dump all that entire text file into a something like a SQSQ. It's like a just a queue. It's first in, first out, and you can have that entire queue, each request go to a different Lambda function. So it's now, instead of sequentially, it's running asynchronously. So you can
Nice.
hit all of those endpoints all at once, and it's probably going to happen before anyone could even block that endpoint or IP. It's going to be immediate.
Awesome. Well, Ron, it is officially an hour. I want to go and eat some food. Sir, I will see
Eat
you
up.
in 2 minutes. That's why I love being in this house, because you just blessed me with something new, and now I got to go and tackle something new so I can save hours and hours and hours of time. If I put it, if
Yes.
the cool thing is, if I put in, let's say 15, 20 hours on just doing what you just said and understanding it and learning it, it's free to do it, right? How many Lambda, you said, how many free AWS Lambda requests you got?
1 million
Oh, pff,
per month. Per
oh my
month.
God, that's lightweight. That's lightweight. So hey, listen, thank you. We're gonna do this again, because Chris said indeed he wants to do it. So sometime next week or the following 2 weeks, I definitely would love to have both of you on the live stream so we can do this triangle offense from the Chicago Bulls 1996. I
Yes,
don't I
sir.
don't mind being Cartwright. I don't mind being Cartwright. Thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate it. Enjoy your Saturday, guys. Stay safe. Stay in your house, your apartment, and grind until you shine. Be so good they can't ignore you.
Yes. Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for putting this on for the community. I've been loving it, and I'm sure everybody else has too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. We're gonna have a special guest. We're gonna have my other roommate, Napoleon. I'm telling you, he's a Renaissance man. You're gonna wanna tune in. He is a Renaissance man. We're going to be talking about creativity and digging deep into thinking outside the box. You want to be here tomorrow as well. It is Sunday and it's your day. Take care.